Welcome back. I'm Alina Smith. I'm a songwriter, producer, and artist for projects like Red Velvet, Itzy, Purple Kiss, and many others. And in this series so far, we have been taking a song from a demo to a final production. And in this final part of the series, I'm going to show you how you can mix your song using Luna Pro and Spark plugins. When I mix pop songs, I find that the most important elements to me are the lead vocals, the kick, the snare, and the bass. If those elements are sitting right, everything else falls into place much easier. Now, we did address our vocal mix in the last video of this series. Let's just hear it for reference.
When I'm with you, I can see two moons up in the same sky.
But now let's go ahead and address some of the other single elements that I think are very crucial for a mix. Let's take a look at kicks. I have two kicks actually in this project, the verse kick and the chorus kick, which sound like this. I do really like how these sound soloed, but when I listen against the track, I do feel like they could be hitting a bit harder. I really wanted to increase the transient information of both these kicks, so I ended up sending them to a bus called Drum Attack, and on it I have DBX 160, which is a really great plugin. I'm just using the snappy kick preset. You can definitely hear it poking through the mix more. What I also did for both the kicks is I created a kick bus and I'm running it into Neve summing here. I have it on the low impedance setting, which really kind of fattens up drums. Let's hear it with the summing in and with it out. It adds a lot. It really does thicken it up. Without it, it kind of seems more tame. And I'm also processing both the kicks with a Pultec. I'm just boosting the low frequency here, 60 hertz. Yeah, you can hear with it off and with it on, that sub just pushes through a little bit more. Next, we're gonna take a look at the 808. So just to remind you guys, it sounds like this. There are a few things we can do here. Definitely boost the sub a little bit. I think we can also make it work better with a kick by ducking the bass a little bit out of the way of the kick. So I just created an 808 bus. This is actually a really neat feature in Luna. The spill button, it allows you to just show the bus and the tracks that are connected to it. Really nice for organization. So we're using the sidechain feature here. We're sidechaining the kick to the compressor. You can definitely immediately hear that kick cut through better. If you listen without it, there's a lot less definition coming from that kick. Next, I'm using Pultec again to boost the low frequencies. This time it's 30 hertz because we did 60 on the kick, just to differentiate them a little bit. Plus, it's an 808. It's very sub heavy, so that's what we want to emphasize. But you could definitely hear when I turn it off what it's doing. And finally, I'm adding distressor here, not to compress. It's in 1:1 ratio, so there's no compression. Yeah, we're just using it for the distortion. And let's check it out. That's with it on, and here's without. Adding a little bit of distortion to an 808 helps it translate better on smaller speakers. Obviously, a lot of people listen to music on their phones, so this is very helpful. Now let's take a look at the snare. I do have a different verse snare from the chorus snare, so let's check them out. So I'm thinking both could use a little more mid-range information, especially if you listen against the track. Yeah, I want to hear the snare, and right now I hear it. Dink. I've gone ahead and created a bus here for these snares. First, let's go ahead and put on Neve summing. This is without. And this is with it in. I immediately can feel more presence from the snare. And now I'm adding EQ on Vision. I really like it here boosted at 400 hertz. It's really nice. You can tell with it off. It's so much less substantial. And then I'm adding a little bit of a sheen at 10K as well. Let's hear it on the verse snare. And finally, to help the snare cut through the track even more, I'm sending it to the same bus that we used for the kick with the DBX 160. Yeah, and you can really hear the difference with all of this processing because this is before any of this. Yeah, I'm like, where is the snare? Where is it? And this is with everything we just did in. Next, I want to address the percussions of the song. Now, these do sound pretty good already, but I do think we can enhance it a little bit with a few small tweaks. Now, I've made my percussion bus here, and the first thing I'm going to do is put on Neve summing. Next, I'm putting on Vision, and I'm just doing a little bit of a high pass here. For tracks like this, you don't really want that much low-end information. I want most of that information to come from the kick and the 808s. And finally, I'm doing a little bit of mid-side EQ here with Hitsville mastering. I am boosting at 12.5 and at 5,000 because a lot of these percussions are pretty bright, like this top loop here, for example. So it's really nice to have that top end information spread a little bit, increased on the sides. Yeah, let's hear it in the mix now. Now let's take a look at the guitars. We have been mixing as we go, so when I listen to these, I don't think they need a whole lot. I would just like to add some of those finishing touches to it. So I busted out, I'm putting API summing on it. It's a little bit cleaner than the Neve summing, and these guitars are already saturated. And I'm adding API 2500 on this electric guitar preset. Yeah, I feel like it's just gluing these parts together a little bit better. Let's check it out in the mix. I want to take a look at our effects here. So we have our vocal effects that I designed in the last part of the series. But I think something nice to tie all of these together would be to widen them subtly. And I'm using Studio D here. So, and then we're going to bust out our effects to it and just blend them in. Without it. Yeah, these types of moves are really subtle. I think it really helps add depth to the stereo image. Okay, so taking a look at my synth parts here, I do think they sound really good. Most of these were created with Luna Pro or Spark instruments. So all the synths together sound pretty good already. So I don't think these need a lot, but I would like to run them through some API summing because summing is an additive process. The more tracks we send to it, the more it kind of just adds to the overall magic, if you want to call it. And let's hear it in the mix. All right, and finally, let's talk about mastering this track. Now, I'm definitely not a mastering engineer. However, I do think it's really important to understand mastering, and you can always work with a mastering engineer by showing them your own master and giving them a good idea of what you want. Now, I did have this master chain on the entire time I was mixing, and this is important to note because a lot of the decisions I was making as I was mixing were affected by the mastering chain, so it is a big part of this mixing process. I am limiting here with the Sonics Oxford limiter. I'm gonna leave that on just because we don't want crazy volume jumps, but let me show you some of the other plugins in the chain that are really affecting the sound. So first we have API summing on, and it adds that nice polish that I'm looking for in a pop track. Yeah, let's hear how it's affecting the track. And this is what it's gonna sound like with it off. Next, I'm using ATR 102. It's enhancing a little bit of the low end, a little bit of the high end, just adding that vibe to it. So let's listen with it on and it off. Let's hear without it. And I would definitely definitely encourage you guys to play around with the settings, you know, experiment a little bit to see what your track specifically needs. Next, we have API 2500. Let's hear without it. Yeah, it feels a little unglued to me without it. Adding a little bit of compression. Like, okay, now this sounds right. Okay, so finally we are using Manly Massive Passive. What I'm doing here is I'm adding a high shelf here at 16,000 hertz, just a little bit of that air. It's always really nice to do on a master, especially for a pop song like this. Let's check it out with this on. With it off. So just to show you guys this limiter here, I'm not doing anything crazy, but limiting is a very important step in mastering, obviously. So we're just limiting about 2 to 4 dBs. I'm really curious to check this out without any processing at all, just to see how Luna Pro and Spark are affecting this mix. And this is with everything we just did in. It's always fun to hear this without the processing and with, because it's such a big difference. I hope you guys enjoyed this series. Thank you so much for watching.